Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Snow White!
Hi! This is beautiful. You look lovely.
I love you.
I love
love
me?
you so much.
I love you. Thank you so much for being here. And to see this is really emotional for me, so I'm going to try to not do that. I love her,
she's
and
emotional
her
now.
superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you.
After nearly 2 years of waiting, Disney's live-action Snow White remake has finally arrived. I was able to secure a seat at the movie's very first showing at 10 a.m. so that I could finish my review that same day. Furthermore, because this film is clearly highly controversial online, I wanted to write as much of a review of it as I could, focusing on the objective factors that determine whether a film is good or bad, rather than on personal beliefs or biases. So let's get right into it without further ado. The plot synopsis is likely the most significant section of this review, since it was here that the controversy began, and Snow White actress Rachel Zegler, of course, was candid about how the story was altered from the original.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
As some images of the 7 bandits rather than the 7 dwarves that went viral. Was the plot of the film actually entirely different from that of the original? Yes and no, and that's essentially the main reason why this film falls short. Because, aside from a few small additions to help develop the world and the backstory, the film essentially begins with the same plot as the original Snow White. And because this film is so similar to the original, I was thinking, hold on, this is definitely not the one that the actors claim to have made. That only lasts until a certain point, though, as Snow White runs into the forest and encounters the dwarves, just like in the first one, after the evil queen threatens her life.
West Side, like, did you have to audition for Snow White, or like, oh, they saw you in West Side Story, they're like, you're Snow White?
West Side Story was kind of nowhere near coming out. We were about like 6 months away from release, and no footage had been seen. And I actually got a really glowing recommendation from Steven Spielberg to Mark Webb, who directed Snow White, saying that. And I also got a text from Steven kind of alluding to the fact that I had gotten the part before I had found out.
She eventually leaves the dwarves to return to the forest, though, and it is at this point that we begin to notice the changes that have taken place. It is clear to us that this was likely the original concept for the film when she encounters the 7 bandits there. However, in response to criticism, they reintroduced the dwarves into the narrative, and this is when the film truly took a turn for the worse because the entire 7 bandit plotline simply didn't seem to mesh with the rest of the film. Only 2 of the bandits speak, Jonathan, who takes the place of the prince in this film because he is now more of a bandit leader than a prince, and another man brandishing a crossbow also exchanged some words. We don't really get the point of the bandit plot, though, as the other 5 bandits hardly speak. To make matters worse, the crossbow-wielding bandit mentions another bandit and gives her name, which makes you wonder, who the hell are you even talking about? As of yet, I have not heard any additional bandits speak. And that line makes it clear that many scenes with the bandits were cut. It's clear that they were supposed to be the main plot point of the movie, but in an attempt to keep the film appealing to the audience, they switched it back to the dwarves during reshoots. It is clear from the way the bandit with the crossbow describes the other character that we are supposed to know who they are. It is also clear that we were likely supposed to have spent the 2 minutes we spend in the forest with these bandits, rather than the 20 minutes we spend sitting with them. As a result, the bandit subplot as a whole causes some terrible pacing problems, where the story struggles to flow and many scenes feel like pointless filler that merely serves to pass the time between the essential plot points that must be hit in order to adhere to the original and try to appease the fans. Because in yet another meaningless scene, Snow White and the bandits return to the dwarves before they depart once more, wherein, as in the original, Snow White dies and is resurrected by Jonathan's kiss of true love, after the queen transforms into an elderly woman and gives her the apple.
What's it called? The Cinderella shop where you can get your child a little dress, and they've got trannies in there. They've got a bunch of men with beards wearing princess dresses trying to costume up our children. So they were probably like, oh my God, an actual pretty woman. Yes, closest thing to a Disney princess I'm ever going to find in Disney World. I'm sorry, but
After being brought back to life, she marches into the castle and overthrows the queen by accusing her henchmen and the citizens of the city of being evil and kind, which causes them all to turn against her. She is then vanquished in what feels like a hurried and cheap anticlimax that doesn't really satisfy you in any way, because why couldn't she have done this at the start of the movie? In fact, the film would contend that she lacked self-confidence at first, which prevented her from confronting the queen. Although you could argue that the original Snow White didn't have much of a personal character arc either, the original film didn't have the Bandit subplot that would have messed up the pacing and destroyed any tension that could have been built with the queen trying to kill Snow White. Therefore, if the entire character arc and story arc is that she just flubs about for 80 minutes and then suddenly starts to believe in herself, it's really quite a lackluster story. As she hides with the dwarves and we watch the queen get to her with the apple, you can feel the tension that has been built up in the first movie as you wait to see if the queen will be able to kill her. However, it was very difficult to find any kind of connection to the story and to sit through the scenes long enough for the emotion to hit us because the movie was bouncing between a number of subplots all the time. That's basically the movie's plot. Let's move on to the positives and the negatives, starting with the positives, because despite the fact that the film isn't very good, I must admit that I did enjoy a few of its moments. One of these was a pleasant, endearing scene with Dopey because, despite the fact that he and the other dwarves were incredibly uncanny valley and looked awful in a live-action movie, some of his emotional moments did kind of land. And we also saw some good moments with Grumpy as his character arc developed in a way that I kind of liked. It's also important to note that Rachel Zegler can sing, because no matter what you think of this movie or what you think of her comments, she can really deliver when it comes to singing. She also gave a pretty good performance as Snow White, which was definitely enhanced by her training and experience in musical theater. That concludes the positives, though. Let's move on to the drawbacks. Naturally, we must begin by discussing the dwarves' appearance, because it is so startling to see this in a live-action film. They stand out like a sore thumb, and even though their portrayals were excellent, their overall appearance is horrifying and detracts from any positive moments they might have had. Then there are issues with the cinematography as well. Although it is obviously of very high quality and looks very vibrant, it didn't seem to fit the story it was telling because, in my opinion, sometimes things can look so crisp and clean that they make the characters, especially in live action, look like a group of people playing dress-up in a park. It appeared to be a Snow White cosplay rather than the real thing because, in my opinion, a little bit of grain, color grading, and slightly different lighting wouldn't have detracted from the film in the least because, while vibrance can undoubtedly work better in animation, the world needs to look both fantastical and realistic in live action. However, this Snow White movie doesn't look lived in at all, so while it's not a bad movie on the level of Madame Web, it's also not something I think anyone will remember or watch again, because even the kids it was obviously made for are likely to forget about it, move on, and never watch it again. In contrast to this film, which was ultimately just overly corporate mediocrity and is likely the worst I've seen this year, they have films like Moana and Frozen to rewatch, which are actually enjoyable, good movies. That concludes my review of Snow White. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. However, we are still only a few months in, so we'll see what happens next and whether another film emerges to overthrow it. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons if you enjoy the video. Until the next time, be careful.